Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi. Now, in a recent set of videos I've shown you how to reattach the arms to a vintage Star Wars Darth Vader figure, and a few people asked me if there were other ways to reattach the arms. So if you want to see how I reattach Darth Vader's arms, then check out that previous video, and today we're going to look at a different way of reattaching the arms of these vintage 12-inch figures. So let's take a look at Chewbacca. So I recently picked up this Chewbacca off eBay. He didn't cost a great deal and he's not in great condition, but he's good enough to show you a different way of fixing these vintage 12-inch figures. Now, the Chewbacca mould was used not only for the Star Wars line, the arms and the legs and most of the sort of body mould was also used for the $6 million man's Bigfoot toy. So the fix I'm going to show you today will also work on that. Now, this is the figure exactly as it turned up to me here at toy-polloi. It's a bit dirty and a bit filthy, so we are going to have to give it a good wash before I start putting it back together. At some point in the past it looks like these arms have broken off, and someone has done a bit of a bodge fix on it. It looks like they've drilled a hole just behind the original hole on the arm. If you look at this one, you can see there should be one hole, and then stuck a nail through it and bent it to make a new loop. So that's a pretty brutal way of fixing this, but as I say, it can all be fixed. But I think the first thing we need to do with this toy is to give it a good wash. It's pretty filthy and dirty, and I always try to give these toys a wash before I go and fix them because they're much easier to clean when they're in pieces like this. So let's go and give this Chewbacca a good clean. Now that I've washed everything and it's all dry, we can get to work on tidying up the first bits of the arms, which is the top sections. Now, this left arm here still has the original fitting in place, and it might be quite nice to keep that one, although as this is a restoration, I want to show you some new tricks. I'm actually going to just remove it. You can, if it's still in good condition like this, just use this and repair around it, but for this instance we'll get rid of it. So I have just my plastic nippers here, and I'm going to carefully snip through the original little bit of plastic there, like so and like so, and then you'll hear there are two bits of plastic inside. Now you can normally rattle these around and they will fall out the bottom at some points. You can see there's one, so it's just a case of rattling them around until they come to the hole, and then they will be able to be pulled out. Let me just do that off camera because it's going to be a bit of a boring job, but there you go, there's one of them. Just get a pair of tweezers and we'll pull that out. Okay, there's one, and there's the other one. So let's move on to the other arm. Now, the other arm is the one that someone's repaired sort of very crudely with a nail, and they've bent the nail around. So what we're going to have to do is actually unbend this now. So I have a pair of pliers here, and I'm hoping I should just be able to bend it by hand. It might be that I need two pairs of pliers to do this. I think it will, so let me get another pair of pliers, and we'll do this with two and bend that apart. So I now have two pairs of pliers, and I can put one on either end, and then hopefully with some brute force, let's try this, bend this apart. It's actually really tough. The nail is a pretty hefty nail. Here we go, that's starting to bend. I think I've only got to bend it a little bit, just enough that I can push the end in and twist it round. That should be enough like that. Almost, maybe a little bit more. Let's try. Just do that. Ah, there we go, and that's got that one out. And it sounds to me like the original bit of plastic is still in there as well, and it is. Look, there we go. Again, let's get the pair of pliers there. We should be able to pull that out. So there's the original little tab as well, which as you can see has broken. So we now have the two arms in a state that we can reattach them to Chewie. Now that we have the arms detached, we can start looking at how to reattach them to the body. Now in the previous video where I showed you how to reattach Darth Vader's arms, I used some twist cable ties that you can buy for sort of tying back the cables that you get inside PCs, and a couple of people said, is there another way of doing it? And of course, with all of these fixes there are plenty of ways to do this, and the other way that I would choose is to buy some of these, and these are called treasury tags, the things that you use to hold bits of paper together with when you've got lots of loose bits of paper when you're at college and things like that. Now there are a few versions of these you can buy. These are the metal treasury tags. You can buy plastic ones, but I find the plastic is a bit too flexible. The metal ones are a little bit stronger, and you'll want the ones that are about 3 centimeters long. So you'll notice if I fold this over so that the two ends are together, they pretty much match the size of the original little bit of plastic that was inside the arm. So these are a perfect fit. Now the bits of metal are slightly too long. You want them to be about the length that the original ones are, and as you can see if I hold this up, they're just a little bit too long. So I have a pair of pliers here, and I'm just going to carefully cut the ends off of these to shorten them down a bit. They don't need to be too short, but shorter than they are, so we just chop those ends down. Now treasury tags are pretty easy to get. You can pick them up at most stationery stores, or indeed you can buy them online. I bought these 10 off eBay and they cost £1 including postage, so they are pretty cheap. So there you go, they're now a lot shorter. It might be worth just sort of gently squeezing the end a bit as well, just to make sure that is a slightly flatter shape, not so sharp now that we've cut it, but you probably don't really have to worry about that. I'm just doing that because I'd like it to be a bit neater. So there you go, we have one done, and I will cut another so that we have both of them ready. For tying the Chewie together, we're just going to use a length of elastic. As you can see here, I have a fairly long bit of elastic. This is the same elastic that I used for repairing the Action Man figures, and really what we've got to do is just tie a relatively small loop. You don't need a huge amount, and you've got to make sure that there's enough tension in it that it pulls the two arms together. So I'm just going to tie a relatively small loop here. Actually that's the wrong way around, let me do it the other way around, it's a bit easier to do off camera as always, but let me do that like so, that's better. Just put a couple of fingers there. I can tie this up. Now you want a fairly tight loop. If I just take my fingers out, you'll see that that's a pretty small loop, and that's about all you're going to need because you want the tension to hold the two arms together. So let's just make sure that's really firmly tied, and then we can chop that off the excess, and that loop should do. Now we have the loop already, we can start putting the Chewie together. So you can see I've already stuck one end of a treasury tag into the armhole, and then we can just place the other end through the loop that I've made, and we'll pop that end back inside there. You may need a screwdriver or something just to push this firmly inside so that it's hooked in place. Then you can see that holds quite nicely, and we can then thread this through Chewie and start sorting out the other side. To thread this through the doll, I'm just going to use a piece of string and thread that through the elastic so that we've got both ends here, as you can see, like that. I can then drop that through the Chewie and it will pop out the other side, and we can then pull that string and we can pull the arm through. And what you've got to do now is pull this really quite taut until the elastic comes through, like so, and then you can hook that with a screwdriver so that you can get the other arm ready and prepared before we put the let go of the elastic and let it pop back inside. So here is the second arm. As you can see, I've already put the treasury tag in at one side, so now we can just slot this one through, and because the elastic is on a screwdriver, we should be relatively easy for us to slot the end through. It could be a bit fiddly just because it's on camera, but let's slot that through. Again, if I pull that taut, I should be able to push it through like so. There you go. So you can see I've now got the second end through, and again I can just push that into the armhole. I've got another screwdriver here so I can just help push that in, because you might want to make sure that it's gone in quite firmly. And we can now remove the screwdriver and the arm should come back in place. And here we have the final Chewie. If your arms are still a little bit wobbly, then you haven't made a small enough loop of elastic. It may need to be made a little bit smaller. I have to say I've modified this one a little bit since I did it the first time because I wasn't quite happy with how taut the arms were. And so just a slightly smaller loop will give you, as you can see here, fairly sturdy arms. Now really, I have to say I prefer the other method that I showed you in the last video. I think that gives a much stronger fixing. The treasury tags do a good job, but I think the plastic ones with a cable tie in between are a much firmer fix, and I have a feeling that over the years the string may perish on these and the arms will just fall off again. But the other way, using the sort of twisty cable ties, will give a firm fixing forevermore. And as you can see, Chewie is now back in a displayable state. There are a couple of ways of doing this. There's probably a third way, but these are the two that I know that I like using the best. So I hope this video has been of interest to you, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter and Facebook.
Now it's a bit of a sad day here at toy-polloi. Now while doing this video I showed you some underwater footage of me cleaning Chewbacca, and after I finished filming that I managed to get the footage off my little action camera here, and then the camera died and it no longer works. And that's a real shame because this is the camera I use not only for underwater footage, but it's also the one that I clip to my bag for when I'm walking around toy fairs, and it's done a good few toy fairs with me. So it's a bit of a sad day because this is broken and will no longer be used, and so it's time for me to buy a new action camera so that I can carry on filming the underwater footage and all the footage that I film at the toy fair. So farewell, you've been a very good action camera, but you have died on me. What a shame.